Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. Before we start the session, can you please confirm if I'm audible or not? Just confirm if my voice is clear to you or not. Yes, I think there is no problem with the voice. Fine. So now I think we shall begin the session. Let us wait for another 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes, so that everybody can join, and then we will begin the session. Yes. So, hello everyone, welcome to revision series for NPS Grade A and Grade B exam, where we are going to revise different set of concepts with the help of multiple choice questions. As a part of this series, the economics and management classes have already been taken. So if you have not watched them, you can go to the playlist and watch those videos. Fine. Now over here, we are going to start revising some concepts related to finance which are important for the exam, and we are going to do this with the help of MCQs. So as a part of this session, I'm going to show you the question on the screen, and what you have to do, you have to write the answer in the chat box. Fine. So that is the idea. Apart from that, if you're somebody who is interested to get through the course that is offered by EduTap for the NPS Grade A and Grade B post, so there's a link in the description where we are providing the demo lectures for that course. You can go through those lectures and you can see what EduTap is offering as far as this exam is concerned. So without wasting any time, let us begin with the session. And I hope you all are ready. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box if you are ready. Just I will address your doubt, Shubhangi, at the end of this session, but just let us focus on the MCQs at this point of time. Then we will address all the doubts and queries regarding the examination pattern. So please give me a thumbs up if you are ready so that I can bring the questions on the screen and then you can start answering it. Fine. So now the first question is there on your screen, but before this first question, if you want to download the PDF of this session, you can go to our Telegram channel and from there you can download it. Fine. Shubhangi is asking level of the exam is same as IFSC and SEBI. I would say it is similar somewhat to SEBI, but not IFSC. It is difficult as compared to IFSC. Fine. So for if we compare it with SEBI, then you can say with SEBI this the difficulty level of the exam we can compare. It is somewhat similar, but more difficult than IFSCA. Fine. So that is the idea. Now let us begin with the session, and here is the first question on your screen. There is no single theory for the cause of inflation that is universally agreed upon by economists and academics, but there are a few hypotheses that are commonly held in the same regard. Identify the cause of inflation, whereas inflation is caused by the overall increase in the demand for goods and services, which bids up their prices. So the option A, demand pull inflation, option B, cost push inflation, option C, skewflation, and after option D, structural inflation. So what do you think is the correct answer to this question? The first question is very much easy. Take your time and try to answer it. Yes, as the Luke Floor is saying, so the correct answer to this question is going to be the A1. Why A1? Because demand pull inflation can be, I would say, in a very simplified language, it can be summarized that too much money chasing too few goods. So basically, the thing is that there is a huge money supply in the market. And once there is huge money supply in the market, what is going to happen? People are going to purchase more and more commodities, which basically means that there will be increase in the competition with respect to but the purchase of commodities in the market. And once the competition will be high, or I should say the demand will be high, what will happen as a result of the increase in the demand? just a usual scenario, basic economics, it will lead to the increase in the prices. And since this demand is since these prices are increasing because of the increase in demand, so that is nothing but a type of demand pull inflation. For example, the steps taken by government through fiscal policy to stimulate the economy, that could be nothing but the inflation that can arise through it could be an example of the demand pull inflation. If we talk about the cost push inflation, it is not from the demand side factors, but it is because of the supply side factors. Fine. If we talk about skewflation means that the different set of inflation is there among the different type of sectors. Fine. For example, let us say if the agriculture sector is doing very well. Fine. Or let us say the manufacturing sector has very high rate of inflation, but agriculture sector has lower. But in the reality, the scenario is vice versa. If we talk about the real life aspect, the agriculture has high inflation, the food inflation is very high, whereas the manufacturing sector, the inflation is a bit lower. Fine, it is controlled. So just it could be an example of skewflation, that how the inflation can vary in different type of sectors. The last is the structural inflation, that is because of the structural issues that are there in the economy, because of which the inflation increases. So that is why A is going to be the correct answer to this question. Fine. So I hope it is clear to you. So both of you have given the correct answer. Now the next question. So you can read the explanation from the PDF itself. I've explained it to you. What do you mean by demand pull inflation? The next question is, identify the situation when in an economy the inflation and employment both are at higher levels contrary to conventional belief. So the first option is galloping inflation. The second is hyperinflation. The third is bottleneck inflation. And the last one is the skewflation and the stagflation. So please mark your answers. What do you think is the correct answer to this question? So take your time and try to answer it. Yes, Luke Floor has given his answer. What about others? Mark your answers, please. Fine. So the correct answer to this question is the E1, which is stagflation. So what is stagflation? If you break down this term, it includes stag plus flation, which basically means that stag refers to stagnation that is there in the economy. When I say economy, it specifically means economic growth. Economic growth. If you talk about flation, flation basically represents inflation. So the economic growth is also high and the inflation is also high. And because of these factors, the economic growth is very low, which is because it is stagnant, it is not increasing, whereas inflation is high. And because of both these factors is the growth is not happening in the economy, but at the same time the inflation is increasing. So what is going to happen? The unemployment is also going to what? It is also going to increase. So basically it means that the inflation and unemployment are directly proportional to each other when we talk about stagflation. Now, if I ask you some kind of related concept with respect to stagflation, do you know about Phillips curve? Do you know about Phillips curve? What does the Phillips curve say? Can you write it in the chat box? Look, Flo, Shubhangi, can you write in the chat box what does the Phillips curve says with respect to the I would say the connection between the inflation and the unemployment? What does the Phillips curve tells about it? So this is just a related question. If you don't know, simply write I don't know because I'm waiting for the answer. What type of relationship does the Phillips curve talks about? So if you talk about the Phillips curve, the relationship that the Phillips curve, okay, somebody has given the answer that inverse relationship. Yes, this is what exactly the Phillips curve says. So Phillips curve says that there is an inverse relationship between the inflation and unemployment. So when the inflation increases, the unemployment decreases. Fine. When the inflation increases and the unemployment decreases, don't you think that the analogy that has been presented with the help of stagflation is very much opposite to the Phillips curve? What is given by Phillips curve? The answer is yes. And that is why we say that when the Phillips curve was given by this Phillips, who was an economist. Then later on, when this phenomenon of stagflation was, I would say, explored. So at that point of time, there were a lot of, I would say, limitations that were taken out of Phillips curve. That Phillips curve is very much limited, and you can say stagflation is some kind of an exceptional thing as far as the phenomena of Phillips curve is concerned. Fine. So as far as the theory of Phillips curve is concerned, so it says that the inflation and unemployment are, I would say, directly proportional to each other. Whereas if you talk about Phillips curve, it says that they are inversely proportional to each other. Fine. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now let us move on to the next part. So yes, E is going to be the answer to this question. Now the next question is, under the flexible inflation targeting framework, RBI and the government of India mutually decide to keep CPI at 4% with the upper tolerance limit of 6% and the lower tolerant limit of how much percent? So mark your answers: 2.5%, 2%, 3%, 4.5%. Yes, so the correct answer to this question, as Gurleen is saying, it is going to be the 2%, and Look Floor is also giving the correct answer. It is 2%. So basically, when we talk about the inflation targeting framework, so earlier what used to happen, there was no inflation targeting in our country. Fine. So just they used to RBI used to take decision, and the government used to come, and they used to, I would say, they used to hold meeting with RBI, and based on that, they would try to control inflation. But later on, government decided that we need a dedicated body, we need a proper structured mechanism in order to control the inflation in our country. And for that purpose, what the government formed a very important committee, which is Monetary Policy Committee. Which is what? The Monetary Policy Committee. Now, what happens in case of Monetary Policy Committee? Monetary Policy Committee has members both from the side of the RBI as well as from the side of the government. Fine, both from the side of RBI as well as from the side of government. And what basically happens, the government decides that what is going to be the inflation target. I'm again saying, who decides what is going to be the inflation target? It is going to be decided by the government, not by the RBI. Fine. So the government is going to decide that what is going to be our inflation target, and but whose job it is to manage this inflation target within a certain range. It is a job of the Monetary Policy Committee. Fine. And what is the inflation target in our country? It is basically 4 plus minus 2%. Fine. So basically it is in the range of 2 to 6%. So up 6 is the upper band, whereas 2 is the lower band with respect to it. And that is why B is going to be the answer to this question. Let us move on to the next one. So this is the explanation. You can read that in the PDF. Then GSTIN is allocated based on what? So this question was also asked in SEBI phase 1. So it will give you a better idea. So GSTIN is allocated based on what? Question number 4. Yes, Look Floor is giving the answer. And what about others? Mark your answers. If you don't know, simply write I don't know. I'm going to skip this answer in the examination. You can write that also if you want to skip this question in case you have no idea. Fine. So the correct answer to this question is going to be the D option, which is the PAN card. So if we talk about the GSTN, so GSTN stands for Goods and Service Tax Identification Number. And if we talk about the structure of GSTN, then basically it is a 15 digit identifier. Fine. And it is assigned to each taxpayer who is registered under the GST system in India. And why it is needed? Because if somebody is, if any businessman or if any individual who wants to operate under the legal framework of GST, then he has to have this GSTIN number. Fine. So if you talk about the format of the GSTIN, so basically it includes 15 digits. So the first two represent the state codes, as you can see. Then these one are the PAN numbers. So this was the question that was asked. I mean, in this question, this is the concept. And once the PAN number is done, after that we have the entity number of the same PAN holder in the state, And then after that we have alphabet Z. This is a number by default. And lastly we have just checksum digit. Fine. So this is, I would say, is the format of GSTIN, and now you know the purpose of GSTIN also, and it is based on the other the PAN card. Fine. So I hope it is clear to you. Now the next question from FRBM Act. So read this question properly and try to answer it. So which of the following statements are correct regarding the escape clause under the FRBM Act 2003? So the first option is the escape clause allows the government to deviate from fiscal deficit target up to 0.5% of GDP. Then it can be invoked in case of war, national security threats, or a severe economic contraction. Then the provisions of the escape clause was included in the original FRBM Act passed in 2003. So please mark your answers. What do you think would be the correct answer to this question? Luke Floor has given his answer. What about others? Fine. So basically, the answer to this question is going to be B option. Fine. So 1 and 2 only. So I think Deepak, you are lagging in this video. You just need to move forward because you are answering the previous questions that we have already discussed. So please just forward the video because you are lagging. Fine. So the answer to this question is going to be the B answer. Fine, the B option. So why is it so? If you talk about escape clause basically empowers the government. It is like an exception to the FRBM Act that whatever I would say fiscal deficit of the government is as far as the FRBM, so the government is allowed to deviate from that fiscal deficit target. Fine. And why is it so? Basically, in case of any kind of uncertain circumstances, for example, if there is a case of war, if there is a case of national security, or some kind of, let us say, economic contraction is there, some kind of a huge uncertainty is there, for example the corona, fine, during the COVID times when the government, I would say, uses escape clause. So during such type of circumstances the clause can be used by the government in order to take some kind of deviation from its decided fiscal deficit target. Fine. If we talk about the escape clause was not included, it was not included in the original FRBM Act, though it is a part of the present FRBM Act, but is what it was not present in the original one. Why is it so? Because it was entered in the FRBM Act with the help of amendment that happened in the year 2018, and with the recommendation of which committee? It was basically on the basis of okay, I'm going to ask you this question. So tell me, with the recommendation of which committee the FRBM Act was introduced? Sorry, with the recommendation of which committee the escape clause was introduced into FRBM Act? So please tell me. What do you think is the answer to this question? Just a related concept. With the recommendation of which committee the escape clause were introduced in this FRBM Act? If you don't know, simply write I don't know. Yes, Luke Floor has given the answer. So the answer to this question is basically what I was writing. So NK Singh committee. Fine. So it is basically NK Singh committee, based on which the escape clause was added, and other amendments were also done. But it was this committee who basically recommended all these points. Now let us move on to the next one. Basically, this is the explanation. So next one is regarding the equity shares. So equity shareholders have voting rights in the company and are considered the owners of the company. Then dividends paid on equity shares are fixed and must be paid every year regardless of the company's profitability. Then equity shares rank higher than preference shares in terms of claims during the liquidation of a company. So which of the following statements are correct? So please mark your answers. So what do you think will be the answer to this question? Yes, so as Luke Floor is saying, the answer to this question is going to be the A option. Fine, A is going to be the answer to this question because if you read the question, the first point is the equity shareholders have voting rights in the company and are considered the owners of the company. Yes, this is true. Then the dividends paid on equity shares are fixed and must be paid every year regardless of the company's profitability. This is something that is a wrong point because dividends are not something that are fixed from the side of the company. They depend on the company's profitability. If the profit is high, so of course the dividends are going to be high, and if the profits are low, the dividends are also low. And apart from that, the dividend is not something that is mandatory from the side of the company. Let us say that if the government is facing huge loss, fine, so the government can skip paying dividends also. Sorry, not the government, the company can skip paying dividends also. So that is why they are not fixed, and it is not like that they must be paid every year or all such kind of things. It is decided by the company itself. Fine. Now the next is equity shares rank higher than preference shares in terms of claims. So this is again an incorrect option. Why is it so? Because if we talk about the liquidation of a company, when the liquidation of a company happens, the first priority is given to the creditors. Fine, the debtors who have the highest priority. After that, the next priority is given to the preference shareholders, and the last priority is given to the equity shareholders. So that is why this option is incorrect, because they have the lowest preference in terms of claims during the liquidation of a company. So that is why it is also going to be incorrect, and the correct answer is going to be the A option, which is one only. Fine. So I hope it is clear to all of you. Now the next question. As per the context of fiscal policy, consider the following statements. So, fiscal policy primarily deals with the regulation of money supply in the economy. Increased government spending is an example of expansionary fiscal policy. The fiscal deficit of a country reflects the difference between its total revenue and total expenditure, excluding borrowings. So, which of the following are correct? So, please mark your answers. Let me see your answers. So, take your time, read it. So, yes. So as look floor is writing, what about others? I'm waiting for others answers also. So yes, D is going to be the answer to this question, which is 2 and 3 only. So if we talk about this question, which is regarding the fiscal policy, so fiscal policy primarily deals with the regulation of money supply in the economy. So this is, I would say, an incorrect option. Why is it so? Because money supply regulation is seen through monetary policy. It is seen through monetary policy and not by fiscal policy. What is the job of fiscal policy? It is not primarily. Also, another important keyword that is written, the primarily. Fine, fine. So even if you are able to justify that somehow indirectly fiscal policy is able to regulate the money supply, I won't deny that. But is it the primary purpose of fiscal policy? The answer is no. That is just an impact. It is not the primary purpose. The primary purpose is to regulate, or to I would say, to monitor the spending and taxation stimulus of the government to influence the economic growth. Fine. How? With the help of spending, which is the expenditure, and with the help of taxation, that is the second tool of the fiscal policy. How they are able to influence the overgrowth, economic growth. That is something that is dealt as a part of the fiscal policy, and this is, I would say, is the primary function of the fiscal policy. Fine. And that is why it is the incorrect option, because the regulation of money supply is the primary job of the monetary policy. The next point is that increased government spending is an example of expansionary fiscal policy. So of course this is the correct option, because when the government increases its expenditure or increases its spending, what is going to happen? It is going to create more and more infrastructure. It is going to boost the economy in a healthy manner. Fine. So what it is going to do? It is also going to pump more and more opportunities in the market with the pumping of money. Fine. Because when the government will pump the money, when the government will create more infrastructure, when the government will create the jobs, all these things will happen as a result of nothing but the expansionary fiscal policy. The next is that fiscal deficit of a country reflects the difference between its total revenue and total expenditure, excluding the borrowing. So of course this is the precise definition of the fiscal deficit. So 2 and 3 are going to be the correct options, and one first option, which is regarding the primary deals with regulation of money supply, is the incorrect one. Now the question number 8. Which of the following areas is regulated by SEBI? So why we have asked this question? Because the functions of regulatory body is a part of your syllabus. It is a part of the syllabus of finance. So that is why we have framed this question from that component. So please answer it. So question number 8. Read the question carefully and try to answer it. Yes. So okay. So your answer is E. Anyone else who wants to contribute his answer? So basically, if we see the answer to this question, if we see the first point that the regulation of mutual fund and AIFs, yes, it is regulated by SEBI. Then the supervision of the primary and secondary security markets, yes. So in this, I would say here also SEBI is involved as far as the supervision is concerned. Then the monitoring and enforcement of insider trading laws, yes, it is also going to be the answer. Then the regulation of chit funds and cooperative society. This is something that is not regulated by SEBI. Fine. So this is something that is regulated by whom? It is regulated by state government. Fine. So the correct answer is not going to be the E1. E is the correct answer as both of you have written. So E is not the answer because this fourth point is incorrect. So regulation of chit funds and cooperative society is seen by state government, whereas the oversight of credit agency, this point is also correct. So D is going to be, sorry, 1, 2, 3 and 5. So 1, 2, 3 and 5. So C is going to be the answer to this question. Fine. So I hope it is clear to everyone. Now let us move on to the next part. The next part is regarding which of the following statement regarding the Finance Commission of India are correct. So the first is Commission is a constitutional body established under Article 280 of the Constitution. It is responsible for recommending the distribution of tax revenue between union and state and among the states themselves. The recommendation of the Finance Commission are mandatory for the government to implement. The Finance Commission also advises on the principles of governing grant and aids to the states. Then the Finance Commission is appointed after every 10 years by the President of India. So tell me the answer to this question. Question number 9. So question number 9, please mark your answers. Fine. So if you see the options, the Finance Commission, the constitutional body, yes, it is correct. It is under Article 280. Then it is responsible for recommending these distribution of taxes between union and states. Yes, this is also correct. Then the recommendations are mandatory. No, this is incorrect. They are just recommendatory in nature, and this is not something that is mandated for the government to follow. Fine. So this is an incorrect option. The next is Finance Commission advises on the principles governing grant in aid. Yes, this is also correct. It gives advice. It gives suggestions regarding grant in aids. If the central government wants to provide different kind of grants to the state government, Finance Commission can come and it can advise. Fine, it is the very important role of Finance Commission. Then the Finance Commission is appointed every 10 years. No, it is not appointed every 10 years. It is appointed every 5 years. Fine, by the President of India. So what is going to be the correct option, since 3 and 5 are incorrect? So 1, 2 and 4. Yes, so 1, 2 and 4. A is going to be the answer to this question. Fine. Now let us move on to the last question for today's MCQ series of finance. So in the context of taxation in India, consider the following statements. In the context of taxation in India, consider the following statements. So the burden of indirect taxes can be shifted from taxpayer to the consumer, whereas direct taxes are borne entirely by taxpayer. GST is levied at a uniform rate across all goods and services, ensuring an equitable tax burden. Income from agriculture is subject to direct taxation in India if it exceeds a prescribed prescribed threshold. So what do you think is the answer to this question? Write the question number also, Sagar. Fine. So look, Floor is saying C. Okay. And what about others? What about others? Please mark your answer. This is the last question for today regarding GST. Very precisely mentioned as a part of your syllabus. So I can see your answers. So yes. So as Look, Floor has written C as the answer to this question. C is the incorrect one. What Sagar has written, Sagar has also written C as the answer to this question. Fine. Again, this is also an incorrect one. Fine. Now, if we see the question, the burden of indirect tax can be shifted from taxpayer to the consumer, whereas indirect tax are borne entirely by the taxpayer. Yes, this is the correct answer. So A is the one statement one is correct. Then the second is GST is levied at a uniform rate across all goods and services. So basically the thing is that GST is not a uniform rate. It is a multi it is a multi-tier rate which has different kind of slabs. You all know about GST slabs, right? 5%, 18%. So different type of slabs that are there. Fine. So it is not a uniform rate but a multi-tier rate. Then the next is income from agriculture is subject to direct taxation in India if it exceeds a prescribed threshold. So it is not the case because agriculture is exempted from GST. So this is again an incorrect option. So the correct answer is going to be the D1. Fine. D is going to be the correct answer to this question. So I hope it is clear to you. So those who are going to watch this recorded video, so the live session is going to be ended. So whoever is going to watch the recorded video, please write how many marks you are getting out of 10. Fine. So how many marks you were able to get out of 10, how many questions you got correctly. Fine. So this is something that you can do, and this is the explanation part. And yes, the PDF of these MCQs, if this whole video is going to be available on our Telegram channel. So please do join our Telegram channel. And if you have any queries regarding anything, the courses that we are offering in the description box, all such kind of things, what you can do, you can contact us on hello@edutap.co.in. So thank you so much. All the best, and keep the hard work alive. And that is it from my side.